And welcome back to Eli Sports Network. We're talking with Mick Hoffman, the WIAA Executive Director. And Mick, you guys we've kind of been waiting for the State Department of Health and the Governor's Office to put out some guidelines about the upcoming fall season. It's another step. I think the first thing we want to stress here is to understand nothing is concrete, right? Nothing is this isn't exactly it, but it's a step at least going toward trying to be a little more organized.
Yeah, we really appreciate Department of Health and OSPI and the Governor's Office coming back with the approval of recommendations. So with everything else going on, taking the time to review, we sent them a really meaty document, and they actually helped. They condensed it, which was great. It was our preference. I will, we got that at Saturday night at 8:31 p.m. So, I mean, that's literally how this is working, where people are working weekends, evenings to keep up. So it's true appreciation for the work. It took longer than we had hoped, but we also understand. That being said, it is incredibly fluid. A perfect example is we shipped those out on Monday. We reference masks. And then yesterday, Governor Inslee comes out with the new directive to wear masks in public. And we instantly went, okay. Now, do we have to update our guidelines on day 2 of them being out? And they got back to us last night and they said, hold off on updating. We're going to put some specifics out in regards to the mask with possible exceptions beyond, right now it's if you're exercising by yourself or with your family. So we're anticipating maybe some other exceptions for organized sports, but we don't know. And so it is literally that fluid. So we're putting the best information that we have at the time with the understanding, hey, it's going to change. And we actually developed a system on our document now on our website to track the changes. So when people are coming in, not only can they look at the new date, if they miss that they can actually see what changes we've made to the document since we initiated it to the public on Monday.
Well, and that's the thing. Last week, frankly, I was getting more and more optimistic with, I'm in Lewis County, and we moved to phase 3, and several other counties have moved to phase 3, and most other counties are in phase 2 now, and it seemed like things were going, and then Yakima spikes, and they end up being the number 2 story in the national news. Right. And there's other hot spots that pop up around the state. And so no matter, and I told you in our conversation setting this up that I had a chance to talk with Shane Nixon, the AD from Fife, and he says, we've got what we're going to do virtually to any scenario that we could think of, and we've planned it. And the toughest thing now is it's just a waiting game now, right? There's really not much else you can do.
Absolutely. And here's the thing is, I'll use a professional term. This sucks, right? It does. And we want kids out playing. Heck, we're all in this business because at one point we were a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, and we loved playing. So that's no good, but we can't focus on that part of it. We have to focus on what we can control. And I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what your, how independent you want to be. The facts that are coming out, our masks make a difference. I hate wearing a mask, right? But I would hate a lot worse getting somebody else sick. And I would sure as heck hate to have to get on our 2-minute drill again in the fall and make another announcement about canceling the season because people were so worried about having to wear a mask now that we didn't contain this thing or at least do what we can do to make it better. And so if we can do what we can do, based on whatever the science is, not Mick Hoffman's personal opinion, not Paul's personal opinion, but what people are telling us that are paid to study this, then we go for it. And heck, yesterday I'm reading Dr. Fauci saying, hey, I'm pretty confident, right? But by December 31st, we're going to have a vaccine. Well, hey, then let's just gut it out and grind it out here for 6 more months and make the best of it and provide as much opportunity as we can and get to a better tomorrow. But right now, hey, it is what it is, and we got to control what we can control.
Mick, and normally I wouldn't associate horse racing with high school sports, but again, it was just by accident that I did not know that your your uncle is the executive secretary of the Racing Commission. But I want to bring this up because it's exactly what you're talking about. I put a story up yesterday, and it really is worth. It's not about horse racing. It's about what the community did to allow. They're starting. This is when we're recording this. This is Wednesday, June 24th, and it'll be the first day of racing at Emerald Downs. Since February 3rd, think about this. Since February 3rd, the backstretch to the track has been open. There has been between 250 and 350 people not only working on the backstretch, many of them live on the backstretch in dorm rooms. Others are coming in and out. This is a little community, and it's a great example of how to do exactly what you just said, because there's conservatives, there's liberals, there's men, there's women. 2 years ago, they had a race where only 90-year-old trainers could enter horses, and they had 5 trainers that were over 90 years old. And then you got jockeys that are 17 and 18 years old of all races. They all come together, and the reason that they were able to start racing on Wednesday the 24th is since February 3rd. Every single day, there's been 250 to 350 people there, not one case of COVID. Not one. And yes, there are people saying, I don't agree with the governor. I don't agree with this. But they said, here are the guidelines. Here's what we need to do. So let's do it. And like the WIAA, and like Doug said to me yesterday, he said, look, it doesn't matter what I think or what I agree with. Here's the goal. This is how we get there. And it really is a shining example of a group of people of all different kinds, but they had that one goal. We need to get back to work. We need to get back to racing. And that they're now reaping those benefits. They're going to be able to do that without fans, but they're going to at least be able to run.
Hey, I really appreciate that story, because I'll tell you the way this will play out is that's a microcosm of how the fall is going to play out. If communities, because of their personal beliefs or their politics or what have you, come out and say, we're not following this governor, or we're not following that directive. If we ignore the science and do, our American independence and make it worse, then those are the areas not playing. And the areas that aren't having those issues are going to be allowed to play, right? I mean, the Department of Health is going to make these decisions. The Department of Health are the ones advising the governor. They're the ones approving what we can and can't do as the WIA. So if we fall in line, right, with the science of that, then we're going to have a lot more opportunity in the fall. And that's going to be a heck of a lot more fun for all of us. I mean, I can't wait. I keep saying this, Paul. I can't wait till I can get the phone calls and the emails about what an idiot I am again for moving a tournament, for how the official is from a hometown and hosed a team. Like, I can't wait for those complaints, because that means we're back playing, right? But in the interim, we got to do what we can do, and that is a great story. The other piece I'll say, you'll probably run into more people I'm related to. They don't claim me either.
I won't even disclose what the family calls you. We'll go.
Oh yeah, my dad was a Mickey Mantle fan, man. That's the way it works.
Absolutely. But so getting to this, as we go down now the guidelines. Again, the other thing that we should talk about the guidelines here a little bit, Mick, is that there's different levels. In other words, the more personal contact, the higher risk. So can you kind of go through those levels that they've determined? And I think pretty much we can kind of guess where each sport kind of ends up being in.
Yeah. So there's really 3 tiers. I'm going to pull up my cheat sheet here, so I don't have them all memorized. But so that came from the National Federation of High Schools, right? Their Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. So we have our own one in Washington. So we have doctors from the University of Washington Children's Hospital. They work with the Seahawks, the colleges, and athletic trainer associations. The National Federation of High School has the same thing, doctors from all around the country working on this, right? So the best minds that are working in athletics at all levels are doing this. Comes from guidelines from the Olympics Committee and all that, right? So this isn't the WI staff sitting in an office, or even the Washington Department of Health sitting in an office, right? So these are the best thinkers in the country. And what they've determined is what we're learning from this is the transmission, right? The spread of this thing comes from droplets out of our mouths and noses, and other people inhale them, right? Or absorb them in some way.
Right.
So what the Department of Health did with our document is they aligned those tiers basically to phases. So, if a community gets to phase 3, the way these are written, they can participate in the moderate level games and sports, right? And when we get to phase 4, there's the opportunity for contests of these phase 3. The ones that are of most concern, football, which again will be continually evaluated. The NFHS has approved a shield that can go on the inside of a mask, right? So it's not a safety hazard or as much of a safety hazard as what was originally outlawed. Wrestling's another one, just because the nature of the sport, right? When you're grappling and you're there, the ones that people wouldn't expect, but competitive dance and cheer are other ones because of close proximity with the stunting and the chanting and the cheering. And so those are really the 4 that are at the high risk. Everything else is moderate to below. And when you get to phase 4, we can do all of them, right?
Right.
Then it's a question of who can we allow in the stands. And it goes back to the early part of our conversation. If your community has not, done its part to help dampen and suppress this virus, then we're not going to be able to allow fans in. I understand the argument. 16-year-old kids, 18-year-old kids, we don't think there's a huge physical impact. But we don't know that for sure yet. We don't know. The doctors are still concerned that there's maybe some cardiovascular, pulmonary long-term consequences. We don't know. And I will tell you, as the executive director of WIAA, who loves to go to games, there's not a game out there more important than any one kid's health long-term. When that kid is 51 years old, like me, sitting on a Zoom call somewhere, talking, if they can't go out and walk to the mail because they have a heart condition or a pulmonary condition, because they were so worried about playing a game when they were 17 or 18, or the adults were, we've done, that's an injustice, right? And so those are the things we have to have more information on. And I mean, our entire world is working on this issue and providing this information. So it's very fluid, it's changing, but those are the considerations that when we're talking with the Department of Health that can't be forgotten.
So, and with that going forward, and again, I know we've talked about this before, but I don't think we can get this message out enough. I mean, worst case scenario is we're in it right now, right? There's nothing happening. That's the worst case scenario. So working from the bottom up, the very bottom would be, any type of competition in any sport that we can get out there, including the fact, let's say it's Camas and Union, they're only allowed to play each other. Well, if that's what we are reduced to, then they're going to play each other 5 times or whatever it is, and we're going to build up from there. Is that that's basically where you guys are coming from, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if depending on what's going around you, it's based on your county phasing, and so traveling across the state is probably not realistic. So I mean that sucks. Road trips with your teammates, that's great, right? But there are going to be more local contests. And I'll tell you what, I play golf against the same guys all the time. It's a great rivalry, right? And so we go back and forth every round. It's fun. Not ideal, right? It's great to go with a group of 20 and move around and have some fun. So I mean that could be what happens, but that's what I'm saying. We need to control. We control and make the best of it. And if the adults are whining and complaining about this, then that's how the kids are going to perceive it. And you're not doing your kids any favors with that. So this is where we need real leadership. It's easy to lead when things are going right and do that. But when it's difficult, that's when you have to know what you're about. And if we're really about the kids' experience, then if it's a Camas Union playing each other 5 times, then we make those 5 games the best 5 games ever. And we find a way to make everyone special, not just the same thing 5 times. So, if the adults in charge are in it for that, then let's do it. We can be creative. I mean, there's some great things that are going to come out of this, despite everything that's been lost.
And that's the thing. I'm talking to John Eagle, and again, part of the planning process for everyone, from ADs to coaches, is he says, our first game, if we get to play our first game, it's against Gonzaga Prep. He says, But what happens if Gonzaga Prep says, no, you're not going to have our kids on a bus for that long, and we're not going to pay for 4 buses so we can have everyone spread out.
Yeah.
So no, that you're not going. You're not going to play that game. He says, so who are we going to play? And so he goes, so I've looked on the schedule and I see Hawkinson is playing Linden.
Yeah.
He says, I've already had the conversation with the Hawkinson coach saying, look, if this plays out, I mean, like that, do you want to play each other? And of course, we want to play. And he's got 2 Oregon schools, and Oregon's a whole different scenario right now on the non-league schedule. And so and I think they even have an Idaho school. So does Camas, do their administration want them to be on a bus over to Idaho? So there's a lot more. There's not only things like that to think about, Mick, but think about again, we've talked about this before, but officials. Yeah. I know of a couple of associations that there's officials that say, I'm not working. Okay. I'm 65 and I've got diabetes. I can't risk it. I can't do it. So, and we don't really know how many officials statewide that just simply, not because they don't want to, but they just can't afford to take the risk doing that, and how that's going to impact. My hunch is, Mick, we're going to see a whole lot more Thursday and Saturday games than we've ever seen, because we're going to probably have fewer officials to pull from. So there's all sorts of considerations that go into this thing.
No, absolutely. I do know initially the officials, about 30% said they wouldn't officiate until there's a vaccine. Now, that was when we were early in this pandemic and didn't really have all the information we have now. Now we know if you can keep your distance, people got masks. It's not quite as high risk, but hey, I just was on a conversation with Todd yesterday on this very topic, and what he shared with me was they've been working. They've got some great thinkers in that association, and so different assigners and what have you have been doing some kind of think tanking. And they said, hey, we're going to put our officials in pods potentially, right?
Keep them together.
Yeah, and which makes sense. Now, if you have an issue, you have one pod down and not 5 or 6 crews down. And so everybody's getting a little more creative as they think through this. And that's what's going to be critical to us making this fly in the fall is, worst case is, well, instead of a full tackle season, if for whatever reason, right, and this is totally off the cuff, and I know it'll probably bite me in the fanny. This is what the WIAA is thinking. But, I mean, when we're talking about being creative to provide opportunities, then maybe what we do, okay, if we can't do tackle football in the Yakima area, maybe what WIAA says is, hey, let's have a 7-on-7 season, because that's at a moderate level, and you're phasing. The Department of Health would support that, and we'll have a lineman 7-on-7 game, and we'll have a regular 7-on-7 game, right? And now kids are going out playing. They're getting the experience with their coaches, and we're giving them a chance to do something. So we are still working, just those kinds of ideas that to provide some type of opportunity, right? We know how important it is kids are involved and active. And so, again, going back to the start, incredibly fluid. We're learning more every day, and we're going to do everything we can to give kids a chance to play.
Nick, the last thing I want to touch on here is this is simple, and basically you kind of said it right there. But because I'm hearing from other coaches and other people, well, no, there's no chance of flipping seasons or pushing a sport to another. And I go, that's just not true. And I think what's really important is everything remains on the table. Is it the first choice? No. Is it the second? It's probably at the very bottom. Right. But nothing is off the table until we know. And that's the frustrating thing. And people want to know now, and they're just not going to. But I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I think there isn't an idea that you guys have kicked off the table at this point, because you just don't know yet.
Yeah, all we've done is prioritize, right? And there's going to be new ideas that come up that we haven't even thought of. But right now, our plan is to start as normal in August. July 21st, the board will make a decision on whether that's realistic or not.
And that I was going to ask you about that, because I knew about the July 21st. That date is kind of hoping to say, this is what we think we're going to be able to do, right? And so let's start pushing forward on that agenda. But again,
or it might be one of those where the spike, or it's just gotten out of control, and we say, okay, we need to fall back and give it a few more weeks. So then we go to September 7th, right? And then our next right now prioritized date is a January start date. And we try to condense all 3 seasons between the start of January, which would require us to move. I mean, that's going to take a lot of planning. We haven't even started that yet because we're hoping we don't have to do it, but it's possible. And so that will be some of our July and August work is, start putting the framework and scaling that out. And then if we would do that, it's probably not realistic to run cross country over in Pomeroy in January 10th. And so maybe we move the outdoor sports one way and some of the indoor sports another. I mean, who knows? So
is
nothing
it
off
fair,
the table.
Is it fair to say, though, Mick, that cross country, tennis, and golf, it's really going to take a lot for those sports probably not to be able to go in the fall? I mean, it's going to have to be just because you can do those things. Even if in tennis you'd say we're only going to play singles only, and you can do a staggered start with cross country and things like that. So hopefully at least that is going to get in.
Yeah, we're also looking at with the new amendment that allows for trial sports, and so we're in the midst of surveying our membership for what they're interested in. And depending on what we get for results, there could be other activities, maybe even other sports, depending on the interest of the membership. It's a little crazy to think about adding in the middle of a pandemic. But again, our job is to provide opportunities that schools can afford to implement and keep kids connected to their education. I mean, that's our role. And we take that serious. So
what? I lied because that just brings me to another question to you, which is, and I think is interesting, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's not me, but I know it's widely known. And at the January Coalition meeting, there was a presentation. This really could be a great opportunity because it's sweeping. It's in colleges now, and I'm talking about gaming, right? Online gaming, esports. It's a different thing. And it's. I know the sports traditionalists will hate to think that this is a quote unquote sport, but it's a reminder. The WIAA is athletics and activities. It's both, and that might be, that might be a really great testing ground for that. How popular that would be through high schools.
Oh, absolutely, and I definitely foresee that as an opportunity for students this fall. We're working through the details right now. We have a platform that we've identified to use when and if we implement. And go to your ESPN app, and esports is listed before some of our traditional American sports. All right, and turn on ESPN, and what are they filling their time with? I mean, on ESPN itself, I'm not talking Ocho, I'm not talking ESPN2, their NBA 2K league. NBA franchises, NFL franchises have drafts and esport teams that play a full schedule. This is been going on for a while. There's 18 other states offering it in their associations, with more of us looking at doing it this year. It brings a different student. And what really impressed me is there's a game called League of Legends. And that's another one that ESPN is putting on their channel, their network. But the critical thinking, all the things that we talk about that we teach in sport are similar in there. The difference is they're using their hands and not their feet, right? I mean, soccer doesn't use their hands a whole lot. They use their feet. Now, I understand they're running, but bowling's not doing a lot of running. I mean, so it falls in line with what we're doing. And the fact of the matter is it connects kids with each other in a community that we have the opportunity to teach, and then it connects them with a coach. And hopefully him or her is a great role model. And it gives them a chance to represent their school, which then takes in all the research about being involved and connected to education-based activities. So for people to come in and watch on screens, it tells us that maybe there's a reason attendance is declining in all our traditional sports, and we need to connect with what our students want today. And so our membership's open to it, so we're investigating it right now.
So I have a huge request and favor to ask of you then.
All right.
How the heck do we broadcast that? How do we put that on the NFHS network?
They already have our platform already. Yeah.
I do that in a heartbeat. I put that on in a heartbeat. Again, I wouldn't watch. And what's interesting to me, Mick, is people my age say, well, who the heck would want to do that? Who sit there and watch someone else play a game? That doesn't make sense to me. I go, how often do you watch poker on TV? Why is that exciting? You know? So, I mean, again, and isn't that the essence of every game? You're watching other people compete. So again, it may not be my thing or anything, but I understand it's an important thing. And maybe off the screen, you can tell me how we can get that done, but I'd put that up in a heartbeat.
It's already there, Paul. NFHS Network already has it set up.
Oh,
it's
cool.
There. You're going to have to learn some new jargon and some new games. But I'll tell you, that is a perfect example of kind of that generational gap, is that I was the same way. And then you start talking to kids. So my son loves the game. Now, we're not talking first-person shooter games. Like, he likes to do that. He's going to be 25. He's getting married. He's a professional. He's got a job, a degree, the whole thing. And that generation now, like with their significant others, they'll have a gaming night where their significant other knows that night they're hooking up with their buddies online to game. Like, that's what they do. Where we got together, use the example for poker. I used to get together with my buddies on a Saturday night and play poker, right? My wife would go do her thing. I'd go do that or whatever it was. This is what they do. I mean, and my son told me at one point, I said, when he got out of college, I'm like, you need to get a job, right? Like, let's get serious here. He's like, I got a job. And I'm like, no, you don't. You're in my house. I know you don't have a job. And he said he was getting paid to play video games, right? Now, not enough to make a living.
Right.
But there's this whole different world that exists. Kids are paying a subscription to watch on this channel that's out there, this popular channel, to watch and learn from other players. $100 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that. That's what I'm saying. That was my reaction. I said, well, good, you can start paying rent. And then he went and got his real job. So there's this whole other world out there that a lot of us don't know, but our kids know about it and they want to do it. So, luckily our ADs are open to the concept and are learning. We're trying to educate ourselves as we educate them. But there's robotics is another awesome. If you've ever been to a robotics event, I mean, unbelievable. The worst I ever got my fanny chewed by a parent as an AD was when we allowed varsity teams to practice on the snow day, and we forgot to allow robotics because the amount of work, I mean, I can't believe how much work these kids put in to get their robots ready for their competitions. It's incredible. So it's all the things we embrace. It's just different than what I grew up with and what you grew up with. Anyway.
Well, the $100 a month sounds like a lot, but then I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? I bowled in a league for years, and I spent at least $25, every week. So there's your $100 a month, and let's clearly it got me in terrific shape as a bowler.
And to be bold like me, you didn't make any of that money back.
No. Fortunately, we got some money back because they gave everyone some money back at the end of the year. So we had to get something back, but it wasn't a lot. But anyway, that is going to be it's going to be interesting to see. Now I'm excited. I want to broadcast esports, and now I want to broadcast robotics. How do we do that?
Yeah,
so
good stuff.
Let's get to it. Mick, thank you so much for jumping on. I know you've got an exceptionally busy schedule. I appreciate it. And again, I think as we go along, if you don't mind just jumping on and just giving us updates, and again, folks, that's where we are. It's about giving updates. There's nothing in stone. Nothing has been completely decided, and it's in the planning stages, and just plan on that try to go out, enjoy a 4th of July and your family, and do some things that you can, and not worry about the fall schedule until at least July 21st. That would be the target date, I think, more than anything. Don't you agree?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's the best we can do. And I appreciate your help getting the word out. We want people to know what's going on. We're getting the information out as fast as we can. So we will continue to do that.
And make sure you go to WIAA.com, and there's a ton of information on there. And on is the app still up? We're putting stuff out on the app?
Yep. WIAA Live is our app, and it's free, and updates come through that on a regular basis. So it's easier to navigate than the website. You get the same information on there that you get the website.
All right, sir. Thank you much. Mick Hoffman from the WIAA here on the Eli Sports Network.